Good evening, everyone. I'm going to call Gardner City Council to order and invite everybody that's in attendance to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, I know. Cheryl, when did we get the new flag?
Last week.
Last week?
Yes.
Looks nice. Very good. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. We're going to start this evening's meeting. We don't have any public hearings, but we do have a presentation from our communications manager and public information officer, Danica Marshall-Akendo, to talk to us about communications for the city of Gardner, promoting economic development, improving quality of life, fiscal stewardship, and infrastructure and asset management. So, Danica, you're on.
All right. Good evening.
Good evening.
Today we're going to talk about effective communication and our overall communication strategy. American journalist Sidney J. Harris said, "The two words, information and communication, are often used interchangeably, but they signify quite different things. Information is getting out, and communication is getting through." This is what defines effective communication. Not only is the information being disseminated, but it is getting through to the various audiences. Better yet, the message is being understood and causing a response. Effective communication means we're engaging. As you know, communications is happening all the time, even when there is no exchange of words. When we choose not to communicate, we're still sending a message, and we open the door for others to create their own messages. The concern is that the human mind creates messages based on perception. And to one, perception becomes their truth, even when it's not. One of the biggest mistakes an organization can make is failing to make communications a priority. And one of the misconceptions about communications is that the smaller your organization is, or the smaller that your city is, the less effort you have to put into communications. This is entirely false. Because in a smaller organization or a smaller city, news travels fast. But inaccurate or controversial news travels even faster. So, your communication has to be just as effective and impactful as if you were communicating with a larger city or a larger organization. So yes, communications is a powerful tool, and making sure the accurate message gets through is our goal. Here at the City of Gardner, our overall strategy is to speak with one voice. When we speak with one voice, we ensure accuracy, increase credibility, and therefore develop support and community. People trust us, and they realize we're a reliable source. So we must speak with one voice. Now, speaking with one voice doesn't mean that only one person is going to always speak for the organization. Speaking with one voice means the message is consistent no matter who they talk to or what they see that's been created by the organization. So how does the City of Gardner speak with one voice? How do we ensure that we reach everyone and they all receive the same message? The answer is we have to be strategic. We have to be strategic in our communications. It means communicating with the best message through the right channels measured against well-considered organizational and communication-specific goals. Simply put, it's the difference between doing communication stuff and doing the right communication stuff. And for this reason, communications cannot be an afterthought, but it has to be at the forefront of the planning process. So let's talk about the city's overall communication strategy. We have 4 principles that guide our communications. First, high performance. You've heard Cheryl talk about it all the time, about being a high-performing organization, and she's ingrained it in all of us. If we want to be recognized as an influential Johnson County city, we must perform at a high level and demonstrate that through our communications, including our visual communications. We need to exceed expectations. We have to be proactive. We will make every effort to provide information in a timely manner to allow the public an opportunity to review, prepare, and respond. We also must be transparent. The more we communicate, the more transparent we are. We have to make sure our messages are clear and easy to understand. The more open we are, the more we build trust and relationship. And we also have to be inclusive. In our communication, we will encourage public involvement and strive to eliminate the us-them barrier and demonstrate the value of community and working together. When being strategic, it is also important to identify our goals. Typically, our efforts surround one of these communication goals, and they are to create awareness. We communicate to make sure our target audience is aware of city initiatives, policies, and events and activities. We also have to market. Even as a city organization, it is important that we market ourselves, especially as we try to promote economic development. We want Gardner to become a common name to other cities when they think of high performance and best practices. We want to become influential. Civic engagement. We want to encourage community participation, civic responsibility, and mutual respect. And this is the big one, reputation management and crisis management. In the age of social media, organizations often find out about a crisis after it has been posted on Facebook or it's been tweeted. We have to be prepared for the unexpected, and we've already started developing a crisis communications plan to help us accomplish this. Ultimately, we have to build up our reputation so that when or if an incident occurs, people will show compassion and support. And we also can't forget about the employees, employee relations. Our strategy must also contain effective communications to city employees to manage employee morale, build trust, and increase retention and productivity. So those are our main goals. Also, while we're being strategic, we have to identify our target audiences. The reason we do this is because we need to recognize who we are delivering our key messages to and how they should be delivered. We have a responsibility to find the best method to communicate to each of our target audiences. And on the screen, you see a list of those audiences. Excuse me. And we also have it broken down by secondary audiences, too. We can break them down as far as we need to go in order to make sure we reach those particular audiences. The tool we use to communicate to these various audiences is not a one-size-fits-all approach. Our communication has to be customized for the target group we're trying to reach. Again, it has to be strategic. For example, millennials depend mostly on social media and video to obtain all of their information and to communicate. Social media is becoming so huge among this group, which is about 77 million strong in the United States, that cities are investing in a full-time staff person to perform strictly social media duties. If we don't respond with the same level of communication, we miss opportunities to engage with the major target audience, who of which are our influencers, our future leaders, our decision makers. In addition to communicating through social media, we have other communication outlets we have to continue to use in order to communicate to our other target audiences. And here is a list of our current communication assets or communication vehicles. And as you can see, it's a pretty lengthy list. And I'll let you look at that for a little bit. So these are all the different vehicles we've used so far to communicate to the public. So we've talked about our goals and objectives, our targeted audiences, our key messages, our customized communication strategies and tactics, and lastly, we have to measure and evaluate. After you implement your communication efforts, it's important to measure your success rate and evaluate what changes or adjustments may need to be made so our communication is even more effective. Before I close, I want to talk about some of the communication successes we've had in the past year that relate to our goals of building awareness, marketing the city, civic engagement, reputation management, and employee relations. First, obviously, the logo. We launched the new brand that will help communicate our message that we're blazing new trails and that we're open for business and that it's a new day in Gardner. We've also increased our Facebook following from about 1,030 from when I first started to now we have about a little over 1,600 new followers, and I think that's been accomplished by posting more frequently and posting more engaging information. We've also improved our newsletter. We've improved the look and the content of our newsletter so it's more engaging and more informative. We've deployed Textcaster to provide a greater service of communications to the public. We've increased exposure of our city by generating more than 50 news releases since I've started. We had a successful town hall meeting with more than 60 people in attendance. Obviously, we had our sales tax renewal communication to ensure the public had the information they needed to make an informed decision. We've promoted nearly 50 events, initiatives, and services, and that's just a few that I put on the screen, just so you know. And we've introduced video promotion to incorporate more diverse communication tactics. So as you can see, it's been a pretty busy 11 months for me, but communication impacts every area of the organization, both internally and externally, from developing a full-blown strategic communications plan to providing design or editing service. All these measures are a part of communications management and ensures we continue to speak with one voice. I'd like to close with this quote by author, speaker, and entrepreneur Jim Rohn. He said, "If you just communicate, you can get by. But if you communicate skillfully, you can work miracles." So let's make a commitment to making our communications even more effective and impactful, and we too can see great things happen here in Gardner. Thank you.
Thank you. While you're standing there, I mean, does anyone have any questions or comments before we let me sit back down?
I actually do. I have, well, just really two. So you gave us examples of some external communication.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk a little bit about what internally you've done from an employee perspective? What are some things that are more regularly and then maybe just ad hoc things?
Mm-hmm. We've developed an internal communications newsletter that we send out quarterly. And it's had a great reception. Employees are loving communicating with one another through that vehicle. We've also started We Heard You, where we meet on a regular basis, and we ask the employees to go out and be ambassadors and ask how they're feeling about a certain topic, whether it's compensation, whether it's morale, whatever the situation may be, and those ambassadors come back, and then we send out an email regarding the information that we gathered and how we were going to respond, the actions that we were going to put in place to respond. We've had more team building activities. We have staff meetings, and those are going to continue on.
Okay. And then one last question. Can you talk a little bit about what you talked about social media and how between social media and Twitter, things can be communicated by someone else prior to the city having a chance. How do you determine what's worthwhile for the city to address from a communication perspective versus what you just allow?
You mean if someone said something that could be critical to the...
Not even really critical. I'm thinking more day-to-day. For instance, I mean, I think all of us probably see on social media, and she can probably speak to it, you know, please at this address, you know.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so how do you make the determination as to, you know, what's worthy of a city release versus what's not?
Well, I think you have to measure whether or not it's going to be beneficial to the public. If it's something that you need to clear up so that the public remains safe and aware, then it's something you want to address. If people are just talking about something that doesn't necessarily impact a large group, or it is not going to affect anyone's livelihood, then sometimes you just have to sit back and let those things just happen. For example, we got a lot of questions and comments regarding the Moonlight Road and the Lincoln Road, and some of the people were just responding like, oh great, this is not going to be the best. I didn't respond to those. But for people who were asking real questions, who really wanted to know how this was going to impact the city and help them, I was willing to do that, and they responded back as well and said, we appreciate you responding and knowing that our government is paying attention. And so...
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, I just had a couple of things. First of all, I know you've been very busy, and I know we've got a lot of initiatives coming up in the next year. Would you be able to touch on a couple of them, specifically the website, you know, and what the potential rollout is going to be for that? I know that we have talked about it.
Yes.
And do we have a date now?
The website is a big deal. Actually, we are working on the website. We're working diligently on the website, but obviously the people that we're working with are on a schedule as well. And because the branding process got pushed back a little bit, it pushed them back, and then the holiday. So we're asking them to try and hit sometime in mid-March, but they're not promising us anything. We're just working along together and trying to get as much done as possible, and hopefully a little bit sooner or a little bit later on we'll be able to give you a definite time frame.
And the second thing was about the scrubbing of the logo. How is that coming along? What's the, you know, how far along are we in that process?
Oh, we're doing well. If you notice a few items here, we got The process is coming along well. Obviously, we're still changing out a few signs, but we've gotten stationary, we've got our trucks, all 48 trucks are done, the ones that were supposed to be done. Some did not meet the criteria, obviously, but, we're moving along quite well. We're getting some internal things done as well with the new look, and so we're coming along quite nicely. We had, projected that we'd be done approximately the end of February, early March, and I think we're gonna be able to stand by that.
Excellent, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you for all your hard work on this stuff. I know working with you on the branding was a lot of fun, and I think it was really, really successful, and it looks great on the podium, by the way. You guys can't see it.
I can't turn it around either.
But it looks cool. So I just want to thank you for all the hard work you put into this.
Thank you.
Well, we're glad to have you here. We're happy for the presentation this evening. Keep up the good work, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right.
Thanks.
Okay, next item on the agenda is public comments. This time is set aside so members of the public can use it to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. We don't have a public hearing this evening, so obviously that doesn't matter. If you have a public comment that you would like to make, I ask that you step to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and be heard. I want to remind everybody, we do have a 5-minute time limit on comments, so please bear that in mind. And if you're getting close, I'll be sure to give you a high sign or something to let you know that your time should be wrapping up. So, public comments are open.
Cam Blazer, 12121 Norwood, Leawood, Kansas. Regarding the airport, you've heard a lot of complaints from us. Tonight, I'd like to turn the tables a little bit. Brian had an airport advisory board meeting that went quite well, and I think we made progress. I want to thank Lee in particular. I know he's done some homework on this. I think Steve has also done some. Anyone else has done homework on the airport situation, I appreciate it. I want to give you a thank you and work together.
Thank you very much, Cam.
Thanks, Cam.
Council, my name's Chad Tate, unincorporated Johnson County. I just wanted to do the same as Cam. I wanted to thank you guys. I think we're working really well on the airport. Attorney seems to be working with us fairly well, so let's just keep the progress up. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? With no one else coming forward, we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Is there a council member that would like to remove an item from the consent agenda? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Shute, second Harrison, that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstention? Consent agenda is approved. New business item number 1. Consider the approval of an employment agreement with City Administrator Cheryl Harrison Lee. There's no real presentation on this. This was an item that was worked out between the City Administrator and the City Council, with me acting as the go-between. Everybody that's up here sat through executive sessions where we worked our way through this. So we're pretty well versed with the information, and I don't feel like we need to rehash it. But without any other real presentation, we'll open the floor for public comments regarding new business item number 1. Same rules apply as to the public comments earlier. If you'd like to make public comment, please step forward and state your name and address for the record. with no one coming forward, questions, comments, anything regarding new business item number 1? Would entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Business item number 1.
Second.
Motion Harrison, second Shute, that we execute an employment agreement with City Administrator Cheryl Harrison Lee. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed? Any abstention? New business item number 1 passes. Cheryl, we're looking forward to, I think I speak for everyone, I think we're very much looking forward to your next 4 years of service to the city of Gardner.
Thank you very much.
Can we get a speech from her now?
Oh, shoot.
No.
I'm gonna throw a little something in. I had my council briefing today, and, I believe that the words that came out of her mouth were, my son is ecstatic. So that's great. We've got a young man that's getting ready to start high school, moved here from Florida, and he's ecstatic to be staying in Gardner, Kansas. I think that speaks volumes. Yeah,
In spite of the weather, right?
yeah.
In spite of weather.
New business item number 2 is our 2016 state legislative agenda. Matt? Good evening.
Good evening, council members. Tonight's presentation on the legislative agenda can be broken down into the following sections. First, I'll go over the purpose of the legislative agenda and how it was developed, and then go into some of the details on the upcoming legislative issues, and finally look for recommending that you approve the 2016 state legislative agenda. The purpose is to identify important topics that are coming up that may affect the city. After that, we can develop a message for our legislatures, letting them know how we anticipate these issues will affect the city. And then they can make informed decisions when they pass policy. And the idea is to create an environment that will help improve the efficiency and effectiveness of city operations. Every year, regional managers in Johnson County get together to discuss issues that the communities are facing. They identify common issues that are affecting every community, and then they create a joint platform to speak with a single voice to Kansas legislatures. The League of Kansas Municipalities also provides a lot of research and updates to let government know what's going on at the state. And then also staff has done research looking at other communities outside of Johnson County to see if there's issues that they've noticed that might affect Gardner as well. And finally, we'll look for direction from the governing body and citizens on the legislative platform. A major component is home rule and local control. Generally speaking, we believe local officials understand the community's concerns the most and are in the best position to make decisions regarding revenues and expenditures for local issues. We support state revenue sharing programs. Fuel taxes, alcohol taxes, they're generated at a local level. We believe that they should be spent at a local level. We don't want to see those funds diverted to the state general fund. We oppose any unfunded mandates and generally believe local control of revenue is best because local officials are held most accountable for their decisions. Our general tax policy is we don't want to see the tax base narrowed at all. We like it as it is. We support local option sales taxes. We recently did this. We passed a special sales tax to support our roads, our trails, and our bridges. We would like to see that authority remain a power of local government. Currently, local government has a sales tax exemption. When we purchase goods and services, we don't pay sales tax on it. Removal of that exemption would essentially add cost to every project that we do. And finally, the property tax levy is probably the most important issue coming up. It was passed last year. Local governments weren't really given any chance to weigh in on the issue before it was passed. Currently, it's going to go into effect in 2018. And what it does is it basically limits our ability to raise ad valorem taxes, and it ties it to the CPI. If you want to raise it past the CPI, you would be required to have a public vote. There's a timing issue with this because cities don't get our valuation estimates until around June, and then we have to pass a budget in August. There's not enough time to really prepare for an August ballot, and then the November ballot is too late. We anticipate a couple bills that will be introduced this legislative session. The first one is, we expect there will be a bill to repeal the tax lid completely. That's supported by Johnson County, the other cities in Johnson County, almost every county and city in the state. The other bill that's being introduced is to actually remove the exemptions that are currently in the tax lid. Right now, there's a couple exemptions that would benefit the city, like there's an exemption for meeting debt obligations and also for property that is currently off the tax reels and will be coming back on, like a tax abatement. If they remove the exemption on debt obligations, that could increase our bond rates, our interest rates, and affect the cost of every project. The other thing is they want to make it more, they want to speed up the process so it becomes effective in 2016. And that bill is supported by the Kansas Realtors Association. We're looking for more direction from the City Council on this issue. Currently, we have a middle-of-the-road approach where we're not asking for a full repeal, but we want the current exemptions to be supported and not removed. And we want them to fix the timing issue, so logistically, we can actually have a public vote. So you have options. You can show solidarity with other cities around the state and say, we want to repeal the tax lid. You can take the middle-of-the-road approach and say, we support the current exemptions. Or you can, support the other bill, which wants to speed up the process, have it implemented immediately, and remove the exemptions. Then delinquent special assessments. This is not part of the joint legislative platform. It's more of a local issue. We've had problems with delinquent special assessments. We support any legislation that could speed up the process. We oppose any kind of artificial cap on valuation growth. We believe it should be tied to the market. We support local CAPER system being separated out from the state employees CAPER system. Local governments and their employees have been making contributions as they should have. So our system's in much better shape. State might try to merge the two systems to make the overall look better. We support KDOT's comprehensive transportation plan, and we appreciate their assistance on projects and studies. And we oppose any diversion of funds away from transportation projects. Real property appraisal classification, this is another local issue. We would support any legislation that would prevent misclassification of agriculture. There's some concerns in the community that some property was being misclassified as agriculture, which then would lower their tax bills. They wanted that classification to be reviewed and legislation blocking any misclassification. Then finally, support law enforcement mutual aid. They have passed some legislation in the past to make this easier to do, and there is some mention in the state right now to pass some more legislation that would make it easier for us to provide mutual aid in other communities and also across state borders. At this time, we'd like to know if you want to make any changes to the state legislative agenda, if we need to remove or add anything or modify any of the current issues that are in there. But overall, we are looking for you to approve the 2016 state legislative agenda.
Okay, thanks, Matt. We'll open the floor for public comments regarding new business item number 2. Anybody has public comments regarding this? I encourage you to come forward. Not really anticipating. thought with no one coming forward, we'll move on. Questions, comments, discussion regarding the legislative agenda?
I'd like to say that, thanks, Matt, for the work that you've done. I've been at this dais for 3 years. Every single year, I have voted against the legislative agenda. I think it sounded too much like LKM's talking points, and I will be happy to vote for this legislative agenda this time around because it's our legislative agenda. It's the City of Gardner's legislative agenda. It's something I've been looking for years, and I just wanted to let you know again how much I appreciate the thought that was put into this particular document, so thank you again. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Oh, sorry, go ahead. Well, I just have one quick question on the property tax lid. Is the focus on eliminating that piece of legislation or overturning it, or is the focus on addressing some of the budget? In the write-up, it kind of reads like it could be both, so I just would like to have a little bit more clarity on what exactly is going to be the focus for 2016.
Yeah, and I want to say a little something about this, because I have a feeling that it was written this way so we could kind of straddle the fence on this, and I think that's why Matt was saying during the presentation that if we want to do something, he's looking for direction from us. I can tell you that among cities in Johnson County and counties and cities across the state, the property tax lid is almost universally not well thought of, and for some of the reasons that Matt suggested this evening. I mean, one of the things that used to be on previous legislative agendas was redoing the budget clock so that we could submit budgets closer to the beginning of the next fiscal year as opposed to August. And you know, that's one of the things that's a problem with this. Trying to schedule votes of the people if we need to raise the property tax at all is problematic when your budget period falls in August every year, and in your budget planning. Shoot, we started our budget planning last year in January, and this year we're starting it in the first week of February, and you know, we plan all the way up until June, and then valuations come out, and you know, you could end up in a situation where you need to be able to adjust the property tax, and if you can't get a election scheduled, you can't do it, and next thing you know, the next year your budget's in distress. I'm stating this correctly, right, Laura? I got a thumb. For those of you watching on video, Laura gave me a thumbs up. You know, it's a decision for the governing body. You all actually will vote on this. I am of the opinion that the position taken by the cities in Johnson County, the county in Johnson County, the league's position is probably the appropriate position at this point, but that's all I've really got to say about it. Although I'll go on just a little bit more. This was added as part of the tax bill last year. When the state legislature raised sales tax on us to the tune of, I think their hope was about $400 million a year.
It's been less than that.
I think they wanted to show the taxpayers of the state that they were still trying to keep taxes under control, so they were going to do it at the local level. This isn't necessarily an unfunded mandate, but you know, local control has been a part of the Kansas Constitution since 1961, and they just went and messed with it again. On a local level, you know, it's very rare that you can go to a meeting in Topeka, and they just fling the podium open to anybody that wants to get up and speak for 5 minutes. It just doesn't work that way. We are closest to the folks, and honestly, I think we're more responsible with our money, certainly here in Gardner, than they have been at the state level, and we're more responsive to them as well. And I think we need to bear all of that in mind when we are trying to decide whether or not we want to take a middle-of-the-road approach on the property tax lid, or if we want to lean one way or another.
My position on the lid is that the only thing that is the saving grace of this particular legislation, which I'm not particularly fond of, is the exemptions. If they remove the exemptions and accelerate the timetable on us, it's going to hamstring us in a terrible way, just as when, we're looking at infrastructure investment on the other side of I-35 for economic development. It's the future of our city. And we have specific needs that have to be addressed. The exemptions allow us to do that. If those exemptions are removed, we're for lack of a better word, we're screwed. And I mean that in many, many ways. Our bond capacity goes down, our expense for bonding goes up. It just doesn't, it messes with our entire financial portfolio. So I'm in favor of this middle-of-the-road language. It's a nuanced approach. I don't think that we should go so far as to say we cannot have a lid at all. It's not really a lid anyway, it's a soft lid, because a vote of the people is required to raise your property tax. It does not mean you cannot do it at all. It's just that with the calendar the way it is, and I think that Matt articulated it very well, it's awfully difficult for us to be able to schedule and have a bond referendum given the deadlines that the state mandates for our budget. So I'm okay with keeping the language the way it is. I'm willing to hear what other people have to say.
I'm okay with the language the way it is also. I agree that we have to be careful how we talk about the cap, as if it's a done deal once the cap is in place, because it isn't. It's a vote of the people, which we've seen how that works out. We all voted for an additional half-cent sales tax for this next 10 years, so we know how that works. So I don't really have anything to say about that, other than I appreciate the work that you put into this also. The one issue that I have on this whole thing is unfunded mandates language. I feel like it's not well defined enough. We say any function or activity mandated by the state upon local governments should be fully and continuously funded by the state. That sounds great. The problem that I've seen with it in the past in this city is we've imposed rules in the past. The state has then passed legislation that says that if you're going to keep those rules, it's going to cost you. You're going to have to put in metal detectors and whatnot, and that was couched as an unfunded mandate, when in effect it was not. The rules that we had in place were optional. They were our option. We could have the stickers on the door, or we didn't have to have them. Obviously, we don't have them now. So I guess I would like to see a little more finer point put on what exactly we mean by unfunded mandates.
Well, I think that in that case, that particular language was not an imposition of a mandate. It might have been couched as a mandate. It might have been stated that way as people, by people who were proponents of the exemption. But that language in and of itself was not a mandate. So I don't think that falls under this.
But I think to Lee's point, I mean, it's as simple as saying any function or activity mandated by the state in which the local governments have no choice to opt out or what have you, should be fully and continuously funded. So basically just adding
Qualifying.
Yeah, a qualifying statement about us not being able to.
With no option.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Yeah, I have a feeling Matt and Cheryl can wordsmith that for us.
That would be perfect.
We can do that before we transmit.
Okay.
That's all I had.
Everything looks good to me, so, yeah, I'm comfortable with it.
Appreciate your good work on this.
Thank you, absolutely.
And you keep up the good work as well. New business item number 3, consider,
Oh, we need to vote.
oh, I'm sorry. You know, the Jayhawks are playing, but it's going to be over by the time I get home anyway, so. I'd entertain a motion to approve the 2016 state legislative agenda.
So moved.
With
the amendments, yeah.
with amendments.
Yes, so moved.
Second.
Motion, second more, that we approve the 2016 state legislative agenda for the city of Gardner with amendments. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Any abstentions? Agenda item number 2 passes. New business item number 3, consider adopting an ordinance granting a natural gas contract franchise to Atmos Energy Corporation. Ryan?
Good evening, Mr.
Good evening.
Mayor. This is before you on a request for a renewal of a natural gas franchise with Atmos Energy. They are one of our 2 natural gas suppliers within the city of Gardner. We have prepared, or my office has prepared the draft ordinance. It's been submitted to Atmos. They are reviewing it and have provided it to their legal counsel. After passage, they have 60 days to accept it, and that's statutory procedure. Really, the form of the ordinance is consistent with state statutes. It's a form that I've used with other municipalities. It's a form that many other municipalities in Johnson County use as well, so there really shouldn't be any issues. The only thing that is probably worth noting is the percentage of gross receipts that we want to collect. By state statute, you can collect up to 5% of gross receipts that Atmos has to collect and pay to you. Historically, those have always just been pass-through percentages. They just take that percentage and they pass it straight through to the consumer. So obviously, the dynamic in municipalities is, you know, that's revenue that we could realize. However, that is an expense to our citizenry who is using the natural gas in this circumstance. I will tell you that most municipalities, you know, I'd say probably at least 80% have gone to the full 5%. But that's policy direction that we would need from you. We included the 3% because that's what's in the current franchise agreement with Atmos that expires on March 17th. We also have a natural gas franchise with Kansas Gas. They are also at 3%. And if we were to change Atmos, we would have to change Kansas Gas because by state statute, you have to treat like providers similarly. So we'd have to equalize the franchise agreement with Kansas Gas as well. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to try and field those.
Okay. Public comments regarding new business item number 3. Is there anyone who would like to make any? No one stepping forward. Questions for Ryan regarding new business item number 3?
How many, roughly how many customers does Atmos have, you know, or numbers, or?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what the area they cover is.
I think they're the minority provider in town, though.
I certainly am not in favor of raising any percentage, so I'm comfortable with 3.
Yeah, you answered a key question for me because I wanted to hear what the franchise agreement for Kansas Gas was. I'm personally a Kansas Gas customer, and I don't think that we would want to increase our gas rates with individuals in the city by changing this rate. So I would be in favor of the 3%, keeping it where it's at.
Okay.
I don't blame you. I've got 3 teenage boys and you've got 5 boys under the roof.
And they don't generate that much heat.
No, well, and they probably use a lot of hot water, so,
Oh, yeah,
Makes
lots of showers.
so. Okay, well, unless, doesn't appear anybody else has any other comments, I'd entertain a motion to, on adopting ordinance number 2509.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Winters, second Harrison, that we adopt ordinance number 2509, granting a natural gas contract franchise to Atmos Energy Corporation. City Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Harrison?
Yes.
Councilmember Moore?
Yes.
Councilmember Shute?
Yes.
Councilmember Winters?
Yes.
Ordinance 2509 passes. You can take care of that for me. Last item on the agenda is consider holding an executive session to hold preliminary discussion relating to the acquisition of real property. Talked with the city administrator about this earlier today. We can't imagine that it's going to take more than 15 minutes. It's currently 7:46.
I would move that we recess into executive session to discuss the acquisition of real property pursuant to KSA 754319B. 6, specifically preliminary discussions relating to the acquisition of real property beginning at 7:46 p.m., returning to regular session at 8:01 p.m.
Second.
Motion Winters, second Shute, that we recess into executive session, returning at 8:01 p.m. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, any abstention, we stand in recess.
Yes.
Another- Jeannie, are we on? I believe we're within the margin of error. So, I'd entertain a motion to resume regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Harrison, second Shute, that we resume regular session. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, any abstention? We're back in regular session. Last item on the agenda for the evening is council updates. Staff, do you have anything for council? Gonzalo, you got anything? Jeff?
Just a couple of real quick items.
Please.
First of all, you may recall, we're scheduled this year to do some improvements at the Gardner Senior Center. We have had a kickoff meeting with our design consultants, Insight Design Studio. So we have started that process, and everyone's anxious to get some work done there. So that project has begun. We have our first Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee meeting coming up next week. It'll be on Monday, the 25th at 6 o'clock, right here in this room. So we've got a list of things we're going to discuss already, right out of the gate. One of those items being the Gardner Golf Course. As you may recall, the last budget session that we had, we approved some funding to take a look and study that golf course with the operating agreement set to expire in August of 2018. So right here in the beginning of the process, we're planning on having a town hall meeting, which will be on February the 9th at 6 o'clock in the Senior Citizens Building, where we'll seek some opinions and of our citizens in effort to get some direction in moving forward and bringing those results to you, which we'll do at the March 7th work session. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Larry?
Couple of items, sir. One, we'd like to remind the public that we do have a town hall meeting coming up on February the 16th here in the City Council chambers at 6 p.m. That'll be for the boats, RVs, and trailers recommendation to garner public input for that particular item. We will have a presentation that night. We will also have something brand new for the public to participate in, and that is we will have electronic voters. So the public will actually vote on a series of questions to give us input on items for recommendations back to you. So they'll get to actually vote in mass all together, and I think that will give us additional information. Along with that, we will be having those same survey questions put out on the website to garner additional public opinion on those same questions and those same items. So there will be some survey data that we'll be getting out to the public fairly quickly for that. Also would like to mention that we had our first Economic Development Advisory Council meeting on the first Wednesday of this month. That date will be changing due to some conflicts with some of the members. We'll be moving to the third Thursday of each month, so that will be our meeting time here again in the council chambers at 6 p.m. I would like to say that the first meeting, I was quite delighted with the response and the input from the people that we have on that committee, and it was we spent an hour and a half here talking about general characteristics and things we would like to see accomplished. So it was quite a nice meeting and quite informative for myself about the input they would like to have in that process. So thank you.
Okay. Brian?
Nothing, Mayor.
Okay. Chief?
Yeah, we also scheduled our first Police Advisory Committee meeting. We're going to meet on the third Tuesday of every month, so that'll be our first meeting. Will be February 16th. Update on the dog. James Anderson is in Texas. He's in his second week. Everything's going great. Him and Canine Zeus, which I'm not sure if everybody knew that was the name, but we got input from the middle school students. I gave 5 names to vote on, and that was actually the overwhelming choice. We didn't have to narrow anything down, so that's going very well. When the dog gets back, I'll bring it to a council meeting.
Okay.
I'll put a stake under somebody's chair.
All right, we just heard a siren going by. Was that on one of the new patrol vehicles? I've never heard one.
Sound like a little tyke siren.
All right, because that sounded unfamiliar to me, so.
Yeah.
Jeannie?
Yes, the 2016 Citizens Academy will begin next week on January 28th at 6:30 p.m. There are 12 individuals signed up, with half of those being members of the newly appointed advisory committees, and there is somebody from each advisory committee that's attending. And we're looking forward to having a successful second year of the Citizens Academy.
Is there still an opportunity for people to apply? I think we've passed the deadline, but do
Yeah,
we still have capacity?
Yeah, we still have capacity, so if somebody wants to sign up, we'd love to have them.
I actually had a question, whether or not students at the high school could sign up for the Citizens Academy.
They can.
And have we encouraged folks from the high school to do that?
I don't think we've done any extra efforts, but we could certainly do that within the next week.
I think it'd be great to get some of our juniors and seniors over there involved, especially since they're getting close to voting age. It'd be nice to have them
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
get that exposure.
Yeah, somebody that's in social studies.
Mm-hmm.
We had one in the first class.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did. We sure did, yeah.
I think Mr. Does Mr. Davidson do the American government class over there? I think he does.
I know Mr. Cochran does.
Mr. Cochran? Yeah, we might want to
Mhm.
reach
Okay.
out to Mr. Cochran and see if he might want to put that out to his class.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Great.
Laura? Okay. Ryan?
Nothing.
Carol?
Yes, we are getting ready to kick off the Citizens Budget Forum. As the mayor indicated, it'll start the first week of February. You will be getting polled, if you haven't gotten polled, about a series of budget forums coming up, as well as looking at the council retreat and the financial policy workshop. The other thing that I'd like to say is thank you for your vote of confidence and for an opportunity to keep a little guy in my house happy for a few years.
Very good. Thanks, Cheryl. Does council have anything for staff? Lee?
Yeah, I have one thing. I got an email from Mr. and Mrs. Friend about a water meter. I just kind of wanted to know what staff's take is on the water meter issue from 1990, and if it was going to get, if we were going to handle that, or how that was going to go.
Laura, I see you reaching for the microphone. Go ahead.
I'm happy to let somebody else reach for it first, but I'll go ahead and start. At the recommendation of City Attorney Dink, I sent Mr. and Mrs. Friend a letter noting that due to the customer exchange agreement, they're no longer City of Gardner customers, and pointed out to them the sections that, of the customer exchange agreement and the wholesale water supply agreement that noted that they weren't, and refunded the money that we could find in documentation where they had paid for a 1-inch meter that was, after that, capped and removed, and then for a relocation of a meter that didn't get relocated. And this is, I can give you the dates, but like back in 2007 and 1990-something. So where we're at with this is, frankly, this is kind of a policy decision. They're no longer customers.
Okay.
They're no longer customers. And that's where we're at. And we've done a lot of research. There's no documentation.
So, do we understand that we did not fulfill our part of the, I mean, essentially, we're giving them a refund, or because we have acknowledged that we did not fulfill our part of an agreement from 1990? And how does that work? Where we just say, we didn't do it, so we're not gonna do it, and here's your money back, and...
Well, I can maybe give you a little bit of background on how I got to what I advised Laura. I mean, they are no longer in our service area. We don't have legal authority to go in and put a meter in anymore. When we exchanged that property, what was supposed to happen was, that there was a period for truing up any liabilities, assets. This was an outstanding liability of the water department because they had paid us this money to put a meter in, and then it didn't happen. So they, in essence, had a credit to their account that should have been trued up during that true-up period. It didn't happen.
Let me add something. I'm not sure that anybody that's currently here knew about it.
Yeah.
So that's the problem, is staff, people have retired, they've gone away, they've moved on, and so when Mr. and Mrs. Friend came, it was, okay, let's look for the documentation, and that's the problem. There's no documentation of any of this, but for the two payments.
I'm not laying any blame on that. I'm just saying, the agreement that we have contemplates kind of settling all debts with these customers, with the City of Gardner. You know, we didn't realize, I think, that this outstanding debt was out there, or this liability was out there. And so, you know, after the fact, I mean, all we can do at that point in time, because the service area, the statutory service area has been exchanged to J07, so we don't have legal authority to go in and do anything there. It's our line. The agreement with J07 indicates that they're the ones who have authority to put meters in. Now, it's my understanding from talking to Laura that there's been some recent communication with them where they have said, well, we'll grant you authority to come in and put it in. And you know, that's something that you all could entertain, but make no mistake about it, they would have to grant us that legal authority because we don't have that legal authority now.
So can we do, so it's my understanding, and maybe I'm oversimplifying this, but why can't we have discussions with Johnson County Rural Water 7? If they agree that, yes, this can be done, then we have to, it's my understanding, amend the agreement to include this water meter, and it comes back to council and we amend it.
I think there might be an easier way to do this, and just refunding them the money isn't going to make them whole, because the money that we're refunding them is $1990. So they've lost a significant portion of their monetary value in the last 15 years. Or 25 years. My suggestion, I don't know if this is legally feasible or not, is to contract with Water 7 to install the meter. Water 7 would do the installation. We would pay Water 7 for installing the meter. So that would fulfill our obligation. We would not have to do anything in the customer exchange agreement. We could contract directly with Water 7 on the installation of the meter. Is that?
Yeah, so just so you understand, I think what they paid for the meter was about
Yes.
$800, and for JO7 to put it in, it's $8,500.
The city fee.
City's fees are $8,500. If we were to put it in,
Yes.
our fees today
Mhm.
are $8,500. I think, if I understand, Johnson Seventh is even more.
And we understand that this was an obligation that we should have fulfilled back in 1990 and never did.
Well,
But-
did we, I'm not sure that that's accurate, and then Laura can give you more of the history. She did an email for me. I mean, at one point in time, they had a meter, they had it removed, and
Mhm.
they never elected to have it put back until, now. And if I'm getting that wrong, Laura, I mean, that's what we've been able to document.
But they paid
So
for relocation.
They paid for it, but then they didn't have to put in, right?
And that's my understanding, is going back what little documentation we could find, and like, an email that tried to reconstruct this a couple of decades ago,
Yeah.
was they had a meter, it was capped and removed, they paid for a relocation, and it wasn't relocated. And I don't know why it wasn't relocated.
But
It just
whose
wasn't.
responsibility was it to
It was
relocate
ours.
the meter?
It was ours.
It
Well,
was
I think
ours.
they have, it depends on whether or not they said where they wanted it, and I honestly don't know the answer to that question.
And they also
So-
have to tell us if they want a meter.
So can we, okay, so can we, I'm assuming, if we decide to internally, it's a matter of, are we gonna eat the cost of $8,500 by having our people go and install a meter, right? I mean, in that case, Johnson County has to agree. We would send people out there, install it, and it's a matter of labor cost versus actual cash transaction. If we decide to have Johnson County do it, then we would have to pay them whatever their fee is. The city would actually issue them a check. So from my perspective, I would rather the labor, that we go out and install it, and with the agreement from Johnson 7, and amend the agreement. And then you don't have any money.
Yeah, I understand exactly what you're saying, but just so we're clear, because I think a couple of you have a misunderstanding on this, they will stay on JO7.
Yes, of
Right.
course.
Right,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
So we put the meter in, but we don't amend the,
We don't have to amend anything.
we don't have to amend anything, they can just give us authority to come in and put the
Oh,
meter
okay,
in.
well then that's even easier.
Yeah, my thinking on it is
Either way, I don't wanna.
pretty clear. It's pretty cut and dry to me. They paid for something that we did not give them. And then now we're 25 years later, saying, we're still not gonna give it to you, here's your money back from 25 years ago.
Which is,
It just doesn't sit right with me.
no.
Well, and
And we
I'm
can
okay
usually
with,
resolve it.
I'm okay with the resolution, but I do think that they never asked for it, or they, if they wanted the meter moved, they would've said, hey, it's been 2 weeks, how come you haven't put our meter in yet? So, I don't know.
Is there really an obligation for them to do that? Is that the standard expectation from the city, that if I buy something from the city, that I have to follow up every 2 weeks to get it done?
Well, I think, I don't know, and Laura's given me a history here, and I'm sure they're here and they can provide some of this as well.
And I see Ryan leaning in as well, and.
Yeah, and maybe they can do that, but it looks like they had one at one point in time, and they asked for a relocate. So we actually provided it at one point in time, they asked for a relocate, we pulled it out, then we never got direction as to where they wanted it relocated to, but Brian, maybe.
Well, and what I'll say, when someone is ready for a meter, they call the city, they expose the main, we tap the main, then they install the meter can, the service line and everything else, we drop in the setter and the meter. So if they don't call us and say, we're ready and we have the main exposed, we're ready to put it in, or we don't do it. It's their responsibility to do it. So they came in a few months ago and said, we're ready for the meter. That's, 10 years, 20 years later.
But did we set an expectation of a timeline that they had to have that open? Was that in the?
I don't think there's any documentation on that at all.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think for me, if they were not, to me, the issue is they're now in rural water 7. If they weren't in rural water 7, chances are if they came in and said, we want this, we would have probably went and did it. So that, that's the issue, and it's not necessarily anyone's fault that now all of a sudden they're in rural water 7.
Yeah, nope, and tell me, staff, we were not gonna be getting into these customer exchange agreements anymore, correct? I mean,
No.
I'm not interested
I don't-
in selling our customers.
No.
I'm just not.
This was I
So-
believe that was.
This was-
This was a statute thing, I mean, it wasn't like we, yeah, it was a swap that we had to go and do. It wasn't like we arbitrarily went out and said, let's get rid of these people.
Oh, yeah.
But if our staff can do it, I mean, we're just out labor mostly, primarily, correct?
What you're giving up is the impact fees. If you, that's not labor, that's the impact fee and then an outside city installation fee, both of which set in old resolutions. So,
But we're really not out that, because.
Yeah, we're not out.
Right.
If we had
right.
done it in the first place, we
We
would,
would-
Yeah,
we'd just still be where we are today.
Let me ask this real quick. So, you say that we've refunded the money to the Friends. I'm saying that correctly, right? Okay.
Out of here.
Okay.
Well-
But you haven't, so you haven't, okay.
No.
Uh,
It's a proposal.
So, there's,
What they need to understand, excuse me, Mayor, just a minute, I think
Please.
we're missing something that I want to make sure.
Take a moment.
we're real clear on. So can you go?
This is your house, man.
we'll call that sidebar, except I'm not involved.
Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, we can put the meter in,
Mhm.
but if JO7 has impact fees, they're gonna pay those fees because they're part of that service district.
So Joe Seven can do it even though we put the meter in.
Hey, that's what I want to make sure we were clear, that you all were clear on.
I mean, we can, I mean, that's, all the billing, all that goes through JO7. And JO7 has the right to, to bill it in accordance with their agreement with their other customers.
But really, that.
We can't do that. I mean, we can't compel JO7 to change their billing methodology. We can go drop a meter in.
That's pretty much what I think our obligation is, right? Just drop a meter in. That's what we were supposed to do all along. That's what I think we do, and what happens after that is between the customer and the supplier of water.
So, is this something, Cheryl, and Ryan, you can tell me as well, I mean, is this something that we can direct Gonzalo to do, to work with Water 7 to make sure that this is okay, to allow us to do this? And, because if we need to spend more time hashing this out with our city attorney, we might as well do it while we're in the city council meeting. It doesn't cost us.
That's fiscally responsible there, Mayor.
I do my part.
We don't know that.
Okay.
I mean, Brian may know the answer to that.
We're not, but we're not talking about waiving.
No.
We're not talking
All
about
right.
waiving their
The
fees.
city's responsibility would have been for the meter.
Right.
And so that's what we're saying.
So if we put the meter in, they still may be on the hook for $15,000. And I think that's the correct fee for is that what they're?
I'm not sure what the water district charges. I mean,
Okay.
Alan made it clear that they, if we put the meter in, they're okay with that, but all charges from the water district will still apply.
All right.
Is there any possibility, I'm just gonna throw it out here, is there any possibility that we could petition the water, I know we can't compel them, they'll do what they want, but is there any possibility we could petition the water district, since we're doing the work to put the,
All you can do is ask.
I would ask, I would ask.
You can't compel them,
I know
Right.
that,
It would
but
be
we're
fair
doing the
to
work,
ask. Yeah.
we're doing the work, so I don't understand why they would reap the full amount of the impact fees on that.
Yeah, I mean,
But
But what JO7 has told us we can do is, you guys can go do the work and we'll go ahead and charge the fees.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
they'll collect the fees on the
Okay,
work.
yeah.
So they've already said this to us?
They've said, right, we have confirmation that if we put in the meter, they'll take them as a customer. Well, they're already a customer.
Yes.
But but what they said is, we will charge. The implication is the monthly charge, but we're not certain about any development fees.
Okay,
No, we need to get that clarified.
yes.
Well,
Well, I
and
think,
that's,
I think, Brian, if you have had conversations with Alan, if you guys can just let the friends know, I mean, what that is, and
Yeah.
we'll go forward and put the meter in.
Excuse me, that,
Can I get you to come to the?
my name is Ron Friend, I live out of the city, but.
I know. Can I get you to come to the podium? The city council meetings are recorded, plus we need your name and address for
Okay.
the record, so,
Ron
sorry.
Friend, 19880 South Gardner Road. I don't think I remember paying anything when you turned my meter over that I have now to Real Water. It was just a change of
You didn't.
who I paid.
Right.
Okay. Is that what you're talking about, that I would have to pay
No.
the Real Water? I'm just kind of misunderstanding that, I guess.
Well, and I'm not sure I completely can answer it, because the problem is it's our line, and they don't have a line out there. So that's why we have this wholesale billing agreement with them, and a customer exchange agreement. So we said, you're not our customer anymore. And I guess nobody here on this staff knew that that old meter was still out there. And so the confirmation from Alan Sutard at this point is, fine, drop a meter and we'll charge them. But what we don't know is, what will they charge you? Will they charge you a monthly service charge, whether you're using the meter or not yet, or will they charge you?
That's fine with
We
me.
don't know.
I don't mind paying a service charge, yeah, I realize that.
Yeah, they
I
may
just thought I
charge
didn't
more.
have to pay the $8,000, is that what you're talking about?
Well, that was the
Well,
city's
we
fees
don't
that we were talking about.
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
Maybe more.
We don't know what the water district charges.
It-
And honestly, at this point, and I'm not trying to make it easier on anybody up here, but we're talking about interjurisdictional things with the water district. We're talking about things that, while we're glad that you brought it to our attention, that kickstarted this conversation, so we can try and help you.
Thank you.
And I would encourage anybody watching on YouTube, you can always contact city council members, the mayor.
Absolutely.
Any of the elected officials. We're always glad to hear from you, even if it's a complaint. However, at this point, I think we've got a pretty good, clear direction to staff, how to proceed in their dealings with the Friends and the water district, and we're gonna do our best to get you your meter set and grease the skids with the water district so that it's not an imposition.
Well, I'd be glad anytime. I think when there was a group out there at one time, 6 or 8 of them, looking the things over and everything else, and I said, you put it right here, I don't care, I'm just, on this side of the driveway. In fact, I just, didn't have a driveway and this and that, so, but I appreciate everything you're doing for us.
Well, let's
I
get,
appreciate it
we
very
wanna
much.
get to
Thank
your
you.
meter.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You bet. All right. Steve, you have anything? Oh, Chris,
I
I'm
just
sorry.
have one thing.
I'm sorry. Council
was sent, communication, actually a pretty good, thorough document of what's been going on with the airport, and so what's been accomplished and what's left, what's coming up. So my question is, in the name of communication, have we published that somewhere for anybody within the airport kind of community to be able to see, or could we create a newsletter? I just think that was, like I said, it was really good information, pretty thorough.
Yes.
And so I think it would be good to
Okay.
get that out.
We will.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. All right. Yes.
Yeah, I'll go what Christina said. I think that it would be a good idea to have some sort of patron newsletter for the aviators out there.
Okay.
On a regular basis, to kind of keep them apprised as to airport developments, especially since, the Airport Association would normally conduct that communication, and they are no longer in existence. So I think it would be a really good idea to have that, and even have some input from the aviators that have hangars out there as well. Keep the communication lines flowing. I did want to thank Brian for his stewardship of the meeting, first airport advisory board meeting. It was an hour and 55 minutes long. I poured through that entire hour and 55 minutes, and there was some very constructive conversation. It's a very positive development, and I just wanted to, again, thank you for your work in that, and I think we've turned the corner, and I think it's going to be much better from here on out. Other than that, I'm just full of praise to people today. This is great. I like this.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Not at all. So.
Todd, do you have anything?
No.
The only thing that I've got, we're taking we took applications for, the airport board. We had one person whose term is, expiring, and, Peter Yazbek, who had served only for a very short time, had a scheduling conflict that was not allowing him to, continue. So, we've got half a dozen applicants in. We're going to be scheduling and conducting interviews. And Jeannie, when are we hoping to vote on that?
February 15th.
February 15th. So we're hoping to get it wrapped up here shortly. You know, I'd talked with Christina and the council vice president in the intervening times. They both had volunteered to serve on the interview committee. I don't think Christina's done it for a while, and I'm not sure you've sat in on any of the board interviews yet. So, and I know that the last round was Lee and Rich, and Steve sat in on quite a few. So, I wasn't trying to pick anybody in particular. And then they wandered across my field of vision, just in case anybody's wondering. But I'm glad that they volunteered. Not that they're not capable. So we'll be having interviews shortly and bringing it to council on February 15th. And I think every one of the new committees has a date and time scheduled, and a whole bunch of the half a dozen people from the committees have signed up for Gardner U. It wasn't that long ago where we didn't have any committees other than the standing ones, and now we've got 30 new people involved, and and some of them are bothering to get themselves a little bit better informed.
That's great.
I think it's a great thing for the city, and I look forward to hearing the updates from the council members as you come back come to meetings after having attended your committee meetings. So, looking forward to that. And that's all I've got, so we'll have a race to see who can make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Let me give it to Shute, second Harrison, that we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. All those opposed, any abstentions? We stand adjourned.